I'd like your opinion about fast driving on the highway. Do you think it's a good idea?
A good point. I used to fly around quite a bit.
Dream as if you'll live forever. Live as if you'll die today. This quote is often attributed to James Dean, the iconic American actor. James Dean, the cinematic icon of the 1950s, is famous not only through his unforgettable roles and striking beauty, but also through a tragic, almost prophetic destiny that took him from the world at a tender age. His untimely death didn't just shock fans, it cemented his legacy, making him an eternal symbol of youth, rebellion, and the bittersweet fragility of life lived on the edge. And now, let's begin on the journey to unveil all the mysteries behind this legend's tragedy. The Hollywood legendary. James Dean was born on February 8, 1931, in Marion, Indiana, into a modest family. Tragedy struck early when his mother passed away from cancer when he was just 9 years old. This loss profoundly shaped him as he was sent to live with his aunt and uncle on a farm in Fairmount, Indiana. Life in rural America couldn't contain Dean's restless spirit. He later moved to California, where he attended UCLA and discovered his passion for acting. Dean's big break came after moving to New York City, where he trained under Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio. His talent and raw charisma quickly caught the attention of casting directors, leading to his first major role in East of Eden, 1955. The performance earned him an Oscar nomination, a feat nearly unheard of for a newcomer. The following year brought Rebel Without a Cause, 1955, the film that immortalized him as a symbol of youthful defiance. Dean's portrayal of Jim Stark, a troubled teenager navigating rebellion and alienation, resonated deeply with a generation on the cusp of cultural change. It was a defining moment, not just for Dean, but for Hollywood and the image of youth in America. His final film, Giant, 1956, showcased his versatility as an actor, playing Jet Rink, a character vastly different from the roles that had defined him before. Tragically, the film was released posthumously, cementing Dean's status as a star who left the stage far too soon. James Dean's legacy extends far beyond his 3 major films. In just a few short years, he revolutionized the portrayal of young men on screen. Though Dean has been categorized as a rebel by all of society through his role, the truth was, he really wasn't one. Those who knew him in life have stated that he wasn't really interested in stirring up the use or changing the world in any drastic manner. So why does society characterize Dean this way? Well, the truth is, he was just a remarkably convincing actor. His acting performance differed from the more scripted performances of the time period. Before Dean, Hollywood's male leads were polished, stoic, and often unrealistically heroic. In an interview, journalist Ray Connolly, who directed a documentary on James Dean in 1975, states in regard to Dean's acting, "All the films I had seen before then were based around people reading lines, as in a play on stage. Suddenly these people, James Dean and Julie Harris, seemed to be saying things that they were making up as they went along. Now, I know that's called improv these days, but back then I just thought, gosh, this is so realistic. It was the first time I'd seen anything like it." His influence can still be felt in the performances of modern actors like Leonardo DiCaprio and Timothée Chalamet, who have cited Dean as an inspiration. Off-screen, his sense of style, leather jackets, white t-shirts, and jeans, remains iconic, shaping fashion trends for decades. However, perhaps the most profound part of Dean's legacy is the way he captured the spirit of rebellion and freedom. In a post-war America yearning for individuality and self-expression, Dean became the poster child for defiance against conformity. His work didn't just entertain, it empowered him. It's hard to say if James Dean would have become a legend if he didn't pass away in 1955. What we do know is that he has had an enormous influence on so many parts of society, on fashion, acting, masculinity, and teenage rebellion itself. and his influence is still strong in our society to this day. It's not important how he became a legend. He is just one, and legends never die. But the tragedy came. The death prediction. Adding to the haunting allure of his story is the sense that Dean himself felt his end approaching. In his final moments, he expressed sentiments that, in retrospect, seem eerily premonitory. These words, spoken shortly before his fatal accident, are woven into his legend, casting a mystical shadow over a life already marked by extraordinary intensity and pathos. In his prime, Dean was a name synonymous with talent and depth, embodying the restless spirit of the post-war generation. He starred in some of Hollywood's most celebrated films, including East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, and Giant, where his emotive acting captured an entire audience, securing him a place as a cultural phenomenon. On screen, Dean radiated a raw vulnerability that resonated deeply, transcending the silver screen and elevating him to mythic stature. Yet off-screen, he was introspective, harboring a quiet yet intense sensitivity that seemed to clash with the pressures of fame and the rapid pace of Hollywood. Beneath his roles, the real James was often a somber figure, weighed down by his inner struggles. Just before the fateful crash, Dean took part in what would become a famous interview. He had acquired a Porsche 550 Spider, a sleek, fast car he affectionately nicknamed Little Bastard. The car was a perfect fit for a young man with a passion for speed and adrenaline. When the interviewer inquired about his choice of vehicle, Dean responded with a comment that would soon seem prophetic. "Be careful about speed," he said. "Life is too short to waste." While his words appeared casual, in hindsight, they seemed charged with an underlying seriousness, as though he sensed that his life was racing toward a conclusion. Ignoring the growing concern from his friends and peers, who saw his need for speed as a dangerous obsession, Dean continued preparing for an upcoming car race in Salinas, California. Some even advised him to abandon racing altogether, urging caution. But Dean was resolute, declaring that he could only live life on his own terms, without compromise. On the morning of September 30th, 1955, he set out on the journey to Salinas, accompanied by his mechanic, Rolf Wütherich. While he seemed calm, there was an unusual energy in the air, a sense of impending fate, as if he was stepping toward an inevitable conclusion. In a seemingly fateful encounter along the way, Dean met a friend who, once again, cautioned him to drive carefully. Dean's response was chilling in its foreshadowing. "I don't think I'll make it to 30, he said with a wry smile. At the time, his friend dismissed it as a grim joke, but in the wake of Dean's accident, those words took on a haunting significance. His remark seemed to reflect a strange acceptance of the fragility of his life and an uncanny awareness of the fate that awaited him. Later that afternoon, around 5:45 p.m., Dean's Porsche collided with another car at an intersection near Cholame, California. A young man named Donald Turnipseed was driving a Ford that suddenly veered in front of Dean's car. With no time to avoid impact, the collision was devastating, killing Dean on the spot and severely injuring Wütherich. The tragic loss of James Dean sent shockwaves across the world, and his apparent premonition of his fate added a layer of mystery to his already mythic persona. In death, Dean's prescient words and actions became essential elements of his legend. After Dean's death, speculation about his premonitions grew. The remnants of his beloved car, Little Bastard, added to the aura of mystery. Rumors began to circulate that the car was cursed, bringing misfortune to anyone who came into contact with it after Dean's death. Tales of bizarre accidents involving parts of the Porsche fueled this notion of a curse, making the car itself a macabre extension of Dean's legacy, embodying the risks and dangers that he embraced with open arms. Years after his death, James Dean remains a powerful symbol of youth and rebellion, a figure caught between the thrill of living life on the edge and the shadow of mortality. His story continues to fascinate us, reminding us of the price of living fearlessly and of following passions that might lead us to our end. His premonitions, coupled with his tragic demise, contribute to one of the most poignant and enduring legends in Hollywood history, a story of a life that burned brilliantly and was extinguished all too soon. Dean's legacy isn't solely defined by his films or his stunning looks. It's intertwined with the almost mystical sense he seemed to have about his own end. He was a man who lived as if each day could be his last, aware that life's brevity is as striking as it is cruel. His tale is both an inspiration and a cautionary reminder of the cost of intense living. The haunting knowledge that perhaps Dean sensed his fate adds a layer of depth to his myth, leaving behind a legacy that reverberates through generations. James Dean's story calls to the adventurous and the audacious, reminding us of the fragile, fleeting nature of life and how some flames are destined to burn out quickly, leaving behind a glowing trail of awe and wonder.